Very good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Brilio Loyalty Webinar, leveraging loyalty by creating amazing customer experience. I'm Sri Rashmi Ambedkar, and I welcome you over here. And thanks for taking our time and joining us. We're excited to have you over here. And we have amazing panel over here with us. Join us today. There are two great, amazing leaders. We have Raghu Ramakrishnan, the CTO of Brilio Data and AI. Along with Raghu, we have Dan. He is our senior director of analytics. So before we move ahead and dive in, we have kept around 15 minutes at the end to ask questions. So feel free to add your questions in the QA box. And we aim to make this as interactive as possible. So without any further ado, let's get started. Over to you, Dan.
Great. So yeah, just a quick agenda here. What we'll be looking at today is we've already done the intros. We want to focus on the neglected area of most digital loyalty programs. We see this a lot with a lot of our clients. And so after we've talked about that area that's mostly neglected, we'll talk about how to optimize kind of digital loyalty programs with data. We'll intersperse some real world case studies throughout, and then finally just finish up with some Q&A. So I will go ahead and jump right in. So in terms of the most neglected area we see, it really is around kind of the actual user experience of loyalty programs. And so just to set some context around loyalty programs, I did some research and really was surprised to see something most people don't think about is how many loyalty programs they're actually in. And when you look into kind of some of the statistics, they say that about 8.4 loyalty programs per average American. When I thought about myself, I kind of tallied those numbers up, thought about my wife, tallied those numbers up, realized just in our house, we're close to 20 loyalty programs. Now I understand why we're always getting those cute little makeup boxes sent to our house, because my wife loves to sign up for those. Australians are active in almost 30 loyalty programs, which kind of blows my mind to think about how many different programs one person could be juggling. And then when you look at the industry, they looked at just one segment of the industry, one vertical, and found that of the top 150 brands, 80% of them had a loyalty program. And so this reality is that our lives are just saturated with these loyalty programs. For anyone here joining or who will watch this afterwards, I'm sure you can kind of relate to just all the loyalty programs involved with airliners. When you think about every time you get a different ticket, you're ending up sometimes in multiple programs, and you're trying to balance those. And so just this alone, this one little segment of just travel shows how many actual programs are out there. And outside of the rewards that they provide, really the key differentiator is going to be the actual experience of the end user using the program. I took just quick snapshots of a bunch of different programs that I found online, and I mean the experience varied so much between them. And a lot of businesses will spend a lot of their time focusing on what reward they're providing for their customers in their loyalty programs, but then they forget that digital experience element, what the customer actually has to go through in terms of actually using the program. And so even though we know these programs are all over the place, we know that there's a lot of intense focus and energy on these programs, we find that, especially when we talk to clients, the organizations, they tend to mostly invest their time and their budgets in advanced areas of digital, which is not surprising. There are so many different ways you can go with your budget, so many different ways you can try to improve the results of your digital business, but they tend to neglect the area that we believe impacts the customer's experience the most, which is the actual user experience on the digital property. So when we meet with businesses and we talk with them, we see a lot of different areas they focus. So what are those areas that they tend to focus a lot on? Rewards is clearly and should be an area they focus on a lot. What framework are we going to use? Are we doing points? Are we doing tiers? Are we, what are we doing here? Are we working with different vendors? Are they direct points? Are they monetary, right? There's so many different frameworks that you can go into in terms of trying to develop your rewards program. And so rightly so, the businesses focus a lot in these areas. Acquisition, right? Make that funnel as wide as possible. How many people can we get into our program? Because the idea is the more that come in, the more that they're going to get engaged, the more money we're going to make. So rightly so, they should look at acquisition. Then you have social. They're doing branding, they're doing campaigns, they're trying to work with influencers. It takes a lot of time, energy, and budget. Segmentation. How do we understand our customers and how they engage and what they get out of our program? Makes sense. They would look into that. Personalization. You hear people trying to talk about one day getting to one-to-one experiences when you're trying to personalize what your customers are experiencing in your program. Makes sense. A lot of energy, a lot of technology, a lot of budget goes there. Prediction. If someone's going to do this element or take this step, what would be the possible next step? Should we focus there? Should we plan ahead? Should we put budget aside for that? And then really that last real area that gets focused kind of ends up being the redheaded stepchild is the app web experience. And this is where we see regularly the business is focused on all these areas. And then when you get to the end of it, the last investment, the last area of focus, the last area that gets kind of the love is going to be your app or web experience. And so to try to bring this home a little bit, I wanted to use the analogy of what it's like to assemble furniture at home. I imagine many of us have had this experience. You can sit down and look at all the different ways that a furniture business has had to prioritize and plan and invest, all the way from looking at the market, where do we position ourselves? What type of furniture do we want to create? What design elements are out there right now? Down to how are we going to store this in our warehouse? How are we going to show this in our showcase? To supply chain, how are we going to move these products? And then it feels like, as the person who's building the furniture, the last area they really put their time and energy and focus into was those instructions that you're left with when you open that box and see 500 pieces. And so this kind of idea, this shows us what it's like for the customer when they come to our website, our app, and they want to use our loyalty program. They want the benefits, they want the incentive that comes with it, but they're left with this just horrible kind of, instruction manual telling them what they're supposed to do. And they're sitting here saying, how do I get into this program? How do I utilize it? What are the benefits of it? And so this kind of idea helps us see what the experience is for users when we talk about this. And we know this to be the case because we look at a lot of qualitative data. And when we look at reviews for, say, apps, we see that most of the negative reviews are not on the program. They're not complaining about how they accrue points, what those points get them. We'll see 5%, maybe 10% are complaining about the reward program in itself. But the majority of the complaints are always around what the actual customer's experience is like on your digital property. One customer said, "This app is awful. I've spent the last several months trying to get this to work." What blows my mind is that he or she took several months to try to get it to work. Obviously, the incentive for this person to use this app is very high, so they're going to go through all of this suffering just to get it to work. Another customer said, "I don't even know what to do about this app. I've always gotten a message when I tried to log in that says critical error has occurred, app needs to restart." So these very foundational, functional elements of the digital experience are just not working for this person. And this person said, "I'm generally against fast food apps because it's typically faster to just order what when you get there. But I thought I would give it a shot since they have pretty good deals," right? There's the incentive for them. But then they follow up with, "The app doesn't even improve the ordering process, terribly designed." And so this person is talking about the incentive. They want the good deals, but the app process is so bad. It doesn't make ordering any better for them. So ultimately, they're not going to engage. This person was much more verbose in their comment. "Terrible idea. If I had to make a complaint, it would be directed to the geniuses who invented this app. Let's think through the purpose of an app. Make your life easy to get what you want and better for the business." So it turns out this person has some business sense, some business strategy they understand. Turns out this app does nothing for you. You can't do at the store, right? So this customer wants to improve the task completion of working with you. But why would they if it's not actually making their life better? And so inside of kind of like all of these kind of statements we're seeing, these frustrations we're seeing, are that end user experience, the area that just gets neglected the most, which tends to be that digital app or web experience. So following out of that, you would ask the question, how am I supposed to optimize my digital loyalty program using data? How do I make sure that experience is better for my customers? So what we wanted to provide, something helpful for you, both to think through, maybe get some aha moments, also some tips and thoughts on how you can talk to your teams about what to do, is kind of 2 levers to balance and then 2 key areas to invest in. So the 2 levers to balance, and they tend to be, opposites, is the incentive and profit. And then right there at the center of this as the keystone is the user experience. So top left, we've got high incentive, low profit. This customer is super happy, but the business is not, right? You've given them such an incentive to come in and use your program. They're getting so much back in terms of rewards. They don't care what the UX looks like. It could be horrible. They're still going to use it because of the value that they get, but your business is not seeing value out of that. Then you have the low incentive, low profit. Neither the customer nor the business are happy in this example. This just means it's a poor program. And it really, again, probably doesn't matter what your UX looks like. If there's no value to the customer, they're not going to come in and engage. And if the program is not built properly, if it's not a good framework for rewards, then you're not going to make much profit because they're not going to engage. Bottom right, this is the low incentive, high profit. This is where the experience is the value for the customer. And in this case, that experience for the customer must be amazing. You need the best UX possible. If you can find a way to provide them with very little value, that's maybe monetary value, but you can still make a lot of profit from high engagement, then you've nailed it. You've got the best program out there. And then there's really the ambitious one, high incentive, high profit. Many businesses will probably never hit this point. This is kind of every business's fantasy. They want to be able to give their customer the most amount of value while making the most amount of profit. Now, to get all the way to the furthest part of that quadrant is probably going to be nearly impossible. But what we want to show is that you've got these 2 levers, and how you're adjusting these is going to kind of develop where your customer is going to fall. But ultimately, we want to hit that sweet spot right in the middle. And that's where UX is going to play a very big role, because you can have a better UX with less incentive, make more profit, and you're gonna have a great program your customers will actually engage with. So what are the 2 key areas that you would want to invest in? That's going to be your data foundation and then user experience and behavior insights. So the data foundation, you're going to have to identify sources of data, collect this data, and then ensure it's actually accurate. That way you can enable analytics to go in and do their job. Now, once this foundation is in place, we can come in, get your analyst team to do user experience behavior insights. That way they can kind of use the qualitative and quantitative data that they have and start to gain understanding of your customers, how they're engaging with the program, and then take some action to improve it. So I'm going to pass it over to Raghu. He's going to talk about the data foundation.
Sure, thanks, Dan. And so from a data foundation perspective, many of our clients, as we work with them, are faced with a conundrum that, like, hey, I have tons of data sources. I have web data that keeps coming in. I have mobile app, various flavors of it. How do I connect the transactional data? How do I connect the voice of customer coming in from ratings and reviews, surveys, right? The social media, through Facebook, Twitter, and other sources. How do I get all of the data in one place, build that 360-degree view of the customer so that I understand the user journey, right? In the case of, say, like in a typical user journey, as the user browses through the site, kind of decides on what to purchase, converts to a loyal customer, and then engages with the brand, and then becomes a loyal customer. So the customer has to go, or is going through, a lot of cycles in terms of understanding the product, understanding the pricing, various aspects of what the buying process is, and then how do we connect the dots with the right join process? How do we identify what kind of household or stitching that we need to do to build that C360 or a customer 360 or a household 360? That way, we are able to drive downstream interaction, be it with the MarTech stack in terms of own channel communication, or in the case of ad tech, driving those ad that appears on various websites, right? That's kind of one of the key downstream interactions. The other aspect is around how do I drive better customer service experience, right? As the user interacts with the brand, the customer contact center, what kind of information I can provide these customer care agents so that they are able to interact or provide relevant information back to that customer who is kind of contacting them, right? The third aspect is around, like, with the advent of cookieless future, right? There is changes to the data management platforms, DMPs, and then a lot of aspects around how the data gets democratized across the organization, or gets handled in a walled garden kind of an ecosystem becomes pretty critical. So the first and foremost aspect of driving customer experience is to ensure that we have the journey nailed out. We understand what the purchase pattern is, creating a solid 360-degree view of the customer, and then driving various aspects of marketing and then conversion. Going to the next slide, this is how we look at as we build data-driven ecosystems that drive better customer experience, right? There are three aspects of it. One is, what are the system of records, right? In the sense, what are the data sources that we need to integrate with? How do I build that contextual view of the customer, and then connecting various aspects of that data? The second pillar is around systems of intelligence. That's where the magic happens in terms of connecting the dots, running those models, building those recommendations, offers, etc., that can drive various aspects of decisioning. And then last pillar on this one is around the systems of engagement. How do I drive the customer experience? What channels I'm going to target the customer, be it MarTech with own channels, mobile, email, SMS, direct mail, etc., or in the ad tech space with paid media. So how do you kind of stitch between systems of record, systems of intelligence, and engagement? However, as we target the customer, measure it, right, in terms of how the campaign is performing, how the customer experiences on the website, where the user journey gets broken, and then try to improve upon it to make it better. So over the next few slides, Dan is going to take us through how we can improve the user experience aspect of things to drive better loyalty and engagement. Dan, over to you.
Thank you, Raghu. Yeah, so once we've got that data foundation in place, it's going to enable us to look in a plethora of very key areas to try to understand our customers' experience, what they're going through, and how we can optimize for that. And so what I'm going to do is detail out just some different types of areas that we do analysis in, and some questions that can be asked. These are questions we ask of the data or the teams we're working with. You can ask this of your teams to try to determine how to get to these actionable insights. And so really one of the first ones here is kind of just doing analysis around user experience. We're asking whether or not the customer behavior is looking the way we would expect it in that kind of web or app experience. There are a lot of metrics that you can look at to understand user behavior. How are they moving around? How are they behaving? Are they hitting our key metrics that we care about? You're going to be asking questions around acquisition and retention adoption rates. Are they what we would expect? Are customers coming into our program? Are they jumping in, diving in, getting adopted? Are they not? Are they stalling out? Are we keeping them long-term? You can ask questions around whether or not they're utilizing the features that you would have put in place for them to really be what you would call a healthy customer. Are they engaging with the program the way we want them to? And looking at trends to see if it highlights confusion or need for further program education. To understand if they understand, they get your program and know how to make the best use of it. And so these types of data come out of digital analytics tools. We use Adobe Analytics, Google Analytics to solve a lot of these questions around the web or app experience. And so to give you kind of a real world example, there's a case study that came out of an engagement we had with one of our clients where they were starting to see over time a decreasing loyalty sign-up rate. Now, this is a big problem because it was having a really big impact on their customer lifetime value and retention rates. With loyalty programs, one of the first things you'll see is that your customers tend to stick around and they tend to have really, really healthy lifetime value because of that retention rate. And so these are obviously going to have big impacts on the bottom line for this business. So they were concerned. So what we did was we came in and we decided to kind of do a two-part. We wanted to conduct kind of interviews with the team. So we talked to the product team, marketing team, try to understand kind of the history of the digital experience, Then we did kind of a deep dive user journey analysis that was looking at just the behavior around this sign up process. And what we came to find out was after years of this product being developed and having new leaders come in and out of these organizations, the development kept moving forward. They ended up with 7 different ways to sign up for this loyalty program. And at first, we thought that can't be the problem because more paths into the program should mean more sign up. But as we went through and looked at the actual experience for the customer, we realized that there were 2 big problems with these multiple ways into this program. One, they kept changing the name of the program. Just a slight change of a word here or there made customers confused on what they were signing up for. Did they already sign up? Do they need to sign up? And then the calls to action to get into the program were very different too. Enroll, join, sign up. And so customers became so confused about all these different paths and what they were being presented with that they just stopped engaging. And so what we put forward for them was to just do a simplified program sign-up experience with consistent naming conventions, consistent calls to action, so that if they saw either of those 2, they wouldn't be confused, they would know what it was. One sign-up was very early on in the user journey, and the other was at a key point right after a purchase. And so in this test, what we saw was a 50% increase in signups during that, in that test and during that testing period. And so then we knew this is a successful test, that we've isolated the real issue, launched it to the entire user base. And after it was launched, they saw a 35% increase in signups, and then that kept increasing slowly at a healthy rate. And so this business is super happy now because they know that they're getting a really good customer lifetime value due to those retention rates being healthy for loyalty customers. And so that gives you kind of an idea of what looking at behavior and experience can produce in terms of insights and outcomes. As well, you can do just pure user journeys. And a lot of these user journeys tend to encompass not just one aspect of the behavior or experience, but the entire experience. And so the questions you're going to ask around this are customers, are they seeing healthy task completion rates? The reality is, as a customer comes to your web, your app to complete a process, and if they get a benefit and an incentive, that's going to draw them even more. And so you want to know, are they converting? Are they completing the kind of task as we would hope they would? The other one is happy paths. Are they taking the ones that you want them to? This always reminds me of a picture I've seen where it's a picture of a sidewalk, and the sidewalk goes up, makes a 90-degree turn to the right, and in the corner there is just a nice little pretty patch of grass. And so I'm sure that whoever engineered the sidewalk would hope that people would walk up, make a right turn, and go that direction. But what do you really see? You see this nice diagonal line worn straight through the grass. And that's because everyone is trying to find their happy path. How can I complete my task as fast as possible? And so you want to understand those happy paths. You want to know if there's sticking points in these flows, right? A lot of what we are asking our customers to do in our loyalty programs and in that experience is to move through a flow. We would hope those flows would be linear, but generally we see like that arrow on the right, that's what a customer's journey tends to really look like. It's all over the place. So you need to understand, are there sticking points? Or even worse, are there drop-off points, right? You're going to ask what your drop-off rates are in different parts of the experience. Are we losing customers in the beginning? Are we losing them before they get to cart? Are they abandoning cart? Is this why our loyalty program is not driving the, kind of the metrics we would want them to drive? And so again, digital analytics tools, Adobe, Google, this is where we get a lot of that data from. To look at a case study that was kind of, centers around this. We had a client that was really lacking loyalty into their brand new kind of, digital loyalty program. And so they didn't know like what areas of the program were roadblocks, was the customer experience good? They wanted insights into this. And so we did a really comprehensive analysis here. In this case, we looked at the entire app, not just the loyalty program, but the entire experience. We built out 9 different cohorts, and cohorts are just segments over time. We'll look at that in a second. And with these cohorts, we were looking at what was their journey, what did it look like, what were the sticking areas, were there like big barriers to them moving through and engaging and growing in their health of engagement. And so what we ultimately found was that there were some really big roadblocks for different cohorts at different times. So new customers coming in that had just been acquired, marketing had spent a ton of money to drive them into the product, running into these like really functional registration bugs. And so in that registration flow, we saw people were not able to sign up. People got stuck in infinite loops. People just being frustrated with the steps they had to take in that process. That created a really big drop-off point to even getting them in so we could get them adopted. Then as far as adoption goes, there was some customers that got through that registration process, but they just weren't being educated or onboarded properly for the loyalty program. They didn't know what the benefits were, so they weren't engaging. And then when we found customers who actually got to that content that explained the benefits and the incentive of the program, they were super healthy customers, and we were getting great results out of them. So, all right, we need to do better at education and onboarding. And then for those kind of down later, in the stream who are returning and engaging, we found that there was just some incentive shortcomings. They weren't happy with the rewards that they were getting. Some of that came through looking at how they engaged with rewards, what they actually redeemed, and then looking at qualitative data about what they said about those. And so really what we were able to do is build a roadmap with them for these different cohorts, help them identify and build a testing plan around improving these experiences, and then monitor the actual results for those cohorts moving forward and trying to just get that trend going up and up. Then you get kind of more fine-grained type of analysis. This is looking at the actual transactions of your customers, the items that they're purchasing. You want to know things like, what are the most popular redeemed items? Like, what are the customers actually looking for? What are they happy with? What are they gravitating towards? Then, in terms of your program, you're going to have maybe points or something around, kind of the currency element related to these items. And are they engaging with the ones that are higher or lower? Are they not moving through our program because they're engaging with mostly these products, and those are lower point accruing? So you're trying to understand their movement and engagement with your program and the framework around your rewards. You're going to ask, are we even matching our most redeemable items to the ones that people want? We find that very often businesses are playing with that incentive and that, profit lever, and sometimes they're pulling a little too hard on the profit lever. And so what we're ending up with is, customers don't want to redeem the items you put in your program because you're trying to make too much profit. You're not giving a good enough experience. There's customer cohorts, right? This is, like I mentioned, segments looked at over time. So here I've detailed out a bunch of different types of segments we look at around loyalty customers. So comparing loyalty engagers versus non-loyalty engagers and how they move in their customer life cycle over time in towards what we want, which is to engage with the loyalty program. Whether they're new, returning, lapsed, or re-engaged, folks are going to move in and out of these segments over time pretty consistently. Are they retained? Are they churned? Why? What's the difference between these two? In our day and age where you can ask apps not to track and say, no, I don't want you to send me messages, you're going to be looking at your contact opt-in versus opt-out. What are the results when someone opts out? How can we change our language because it makes the experience that much better? It gives us more data. And then looking really just at all of these over time in relation to your customer life cycles. Now, the one that kind of puts that all together is what we call customer analytics. This is where you're matching customers all the way through cohorts, transaction level detail, digital behavior, digital engagement. It's kind of that 360 view that Raghu was talking about, pulling all these data sources into one place to get this really good picture of your customers. A question that would be a customer analytics question is, can we tie back campaign engagement with loyalty purchases at a particular store in predefined segments? And what do we find when we look at that? And so, in some cases, we have clients who their Google Analytics data easily put into their relational database. So it's one quick query. We can look at all this data in one place. It's beautiful, it's fast, it's easy. Then some folks who are using Adobe Analytics struggle to get that data into a relational database. So we've got disparate data sources here. So we're going to use tools to stitch that data together, give us that one holistic view. And those would be tools like Alteryx or Tableau Prep, dashboards, and analysis that can kind of come out of those. And so to give you kind of a customer analytics case study, we had one client where they were kind of wondering, are we lacking a comprehensive loyalty program? And so really the issue was we had this executive leader, and he truly had this idea that, our program could be more. And the reason he thought that was because their program was not very comprehensive. It really focused on just one of the items out of the, plethora of items that they sold. And so he wanted to know, Can you help me quantify or prove that if we extended this program to all of our customers and all of our items, that we would get better results than we are today? So we did an analysis, and this analysis combined how customers behaved in the app, what their purchase habits looked like, what their, which cohorts they fell into, and then looking at their customer lifetime value, things like that. And what we found is when you compare loyalty customers, which was a smaller percentage of their total customers, to the other customers, they produce this disproportionate amount of revenue. And this is because of what we know. They are retained better, they stay around longer, they spend more. So in essence, yes, we were able to show him through multiple analyses that, yeah, if you expanded this to all of these items, these people are already purchasing those items, they'll see the benefit of it. And if you can even get a percentage of this type of result with the larger group, you're going to see vastly improved metrics. And so what this, what this executive was able to do was take all of this analysis and insights and data and just push an organizational push to invest in and improve their loyalty program. And once that new program was launched with all of the new items included, what they saw was that the percentage of users actively engaging in a loyalty program increased by 87% within the first 3 months. The customers loved the idea that they could now get rewards for what they do on a daily basis of purchasing their products. And so that gives you kind of an idea of what a customer analytics approach would look like and how it can benefit. And then the last one is really the qualitative. So previously we've been looking at quantitative data. This is, quantitative, you can add it up, you can trend it out. Qualitative is really, more of the flavor, the emotion. And so with like quantitative, we can tell you what, this is what is happening. Qualitative allows us to say why most of the times. And so this type of data is super important for understanding what your customers think about your loyalty program. You can run web or app surveys, see what the responses say. A really good one is Play Store and iTunes reviews. That's great verbatims from your customers about what they think. And then there's tools like Glassbox that allow, eye tracking, mouse tracking, how people move through the flows, and they generate frustration scores and help you identify areas that you can improve. And, just to give you, a quick example, not a case study, but with the reviews, we built a dashboard for a client. And it pulled all the reviews together from the Play Store, from iTunes. And what it did, it ran some sentimentality. And so we were trying to understand overall sentiment towards the app and the program. But then it gave them the ability to search. And so what we would do if we did analysis around a certain element, we would search terms related to that element. And we would find that in some cases, it would direct us in the right area, or it would just affirm what we already found in our trends and in our quantitative analysis. And then for the product and marketing team, it was just great because they could go and search the name of the campaign or the promotion they're running, and that would allow them to surface up actual kind of, feedback from their customers and know how to tailor their roadmap and what to do next. So just to recap, we talked about 2 levers to balance. You've got incentive, you've got profit. You got to be careful on how you pull too hard on one or the other. And really that keystone that holds all that together is going to be the actual user's experience, how you design it, how you understand it, how you optimize it. And the 2 key areas to invest in so you can optimize these programs: data foundation. Raghu walked us through those 12 different data sources and what a data-driven ecosystem looks like. And then I walked you through the UX and behavioral insights, where we had UX, user journey, transactional cohort, customer analyses, all in quantitative, and then that qualitative voice of customer. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If there's any questions, please, submit them. We'd love to answer some questions here in our Q&A. But yeah, thanks again for your time and your attention. Over to you, team, for the Q&A.
Thank you, Dan and Raghu. We'll be moving to Q&A segment. I see there are a couple of questions coming up. So we'll go one by one. The first one is from the gentleman. It says that how does a privacy and compliance play into consideration for driving loyalty?
So as we talked about the data foundation, right, there are various sources of data. And then with laws around CCPA, GDPR, there are like rules around what kind of data can be collected, the consent aspect of things. So it has to be like kind of part of the design upfront than an afterthought. So we call that as a TRISM, like a trust, risk kind of a approach, and then ensuring that the security management is part of the design in itself, baked into it. There are other aspects of integration with downstream systems, right? How Facebook, Google ads handle the data. And then what kind of data they share back to us. They sometimes share in terms of cohorts, or they give it based on email addresses. So there are aspects that we need to consider, both in that are inbound into our data platform, and then those that are integrations with downstream applications. So it has to be like kind of carefully thought through, the IDs managed effectively, so that in the case of say CCPR, if the CCPA, if the user asks for data deletion, we are able to identify those records pretty in a clear, consistent manner, and then take care of those aspects, right? Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything here on this.
Yeah, and I think, also it comes down, we see a lot around the messaging of what you are supplying to your customers to help them understand what the benefits are of giving you this data, how you're using their data. And so we've worked with a lot of our clients where they've tested different messaging at the bottom of their website, different ways of opting in or opting out for that data and that tracking. And so it really comes down, I think, a lot to, from the user experience standpoint, really the clarity around it, the transparency around it, and earning that trust with your customers.
We'll go to next one. This is like, what's your typical approach or methodology and timeline to improve customer experience?
Yeah, this is great, right? So as we looked at the data foundation and aspects of qualitative and quantitative analysis, right? Big Bang approach doesn't clearly work here in this aspect. So basically, it has to be broken down into sub-segments or phases, wherein we kind of look at, say, a particular channel or a set of channels that are grouped together, see how the customer behavior is in those channels, do a gap analysis of their data footprint, right? What kind of, how the customer 360 is being built. If it exists, then what are like kind of the things that are working, that would be gaps in terms of data enrichments from second or third party sources, and then how it can be channeled through those MarTech, AdTech channels, right? So what we typically do is to have a rapid assessment phase, wherein few of our MarTech CX experts jump in and then look at how the lay of the land is, right? This is typically a 4 to 6 week engagement. We come in with all the tool sets, do a tagging audit, data layer audit, and then try to identify those key aspects around quantitative and qualitative parameters, right? So once that is defined, we kind of break that into like few subphases, right? What could be termed as a quick win, right? Low-hanging things that can drive immediate value. What can be taken in the short term, long term, right? So we break it up into like post 6 weeks, like a 8 to 12 week window where we target all of the quick wins, right, that we identified that drive immediate value. Then we go into the next set of 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months, what can be done, and then stand up the team with the right skill set to address those challenges, right? And then the key element is that as part of each phase, we measure like what impact it has created before we kind of go full-fledged into subsequent phases, right? So that way we learn through kind of the customers who are browsing the site, using the mobile app, right? And then tweak the flows a little bit to kind of drive better value and impact. That's our typical approach here.
All right. Thanks, Raghu. The next one is interesting one. How can leaders better balance investment between different teams like marketing, product, and development?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of work in trying to work with different stakeholders, work with different business units, work with different leaders to make sure that really it's a collaborative process and you've got a lot of the right people at the table. We see in a lot of cases where one team is really driving all of the efforts, and not realizing that without the other teams in tow and working, together, they're not going to be as successful. We've seen marketing teams that have the biggest budget, they're driving the widest funnel in the world, but we're seeing really horrible rates of folks coming in, getting adopted, joining the programs. And so you can shove as many folks as you want in the funnel, but if the experience isn't good, they're not going to be your actual kind of good customer producing the results you want. And so it's, really bringing in the product team with the marketing team, making sure that they're at the same table, they're getting similar investments, allows to make sure that the marketing team is going to actually have a higher rate of conversion for the customers they're bringing in. And then even at the same time is, bringing in development teams to make sure that as the product's being developed, the analytics is actually being tagged, or bringing in the data team to make sure the data is actually being collected. Because we get to some points where, we have a product team or a marketing team coming to us to understand the results that they've gotten from a different campaign or a new feature. And ultimately, there's no measurement to be done because the data wasn't collected. It was just left off the process. Analytics was an afterthought. And so we try to help everyone see that they all play a part. And for the entire org to be successful, they're all going to have to work together. And in some cases, we try to help be that thread across those teams to make sure that everyone is kind of working happily together.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. So we are moving to our last question. What kind of teams do you generally work with to perform this analysis?
Yeah, I think we kind of, we work with a lot of different teams. We have, executive teams that are trying to get the higher level understanding, understand where they should put their focuses, what's important. We work with a lot of product teams to make sure that they have the data they need. They're building a roadmap, and they're trying to, make sure that they get all their ducks in a row. Having the data to support that, to know what direction to go in, is really helpful for them. Marketing teams tend to have a lot of other support that's looking purely off of the digital experience. And so they'll come in with, metrics around, their cost per acquisition and things like that. But really, we work with marketing teams to see what happens once this, acquired customer from a different channel, what happens once they're on your digital property, and help that kind of inform your marketing strategies. And then in a lot of cases, we're working with development teams as well, just to make sure that we give them the right requirements. We help them understand the impact of making sure certain things are tagged or tracked in that regard. And yeah, Roger, I'm sure you could name a bunch of other teams that we work with as well.
So end of the day, just to add into what Dan is saying, right? We need to identify, based on the gap analysis, the rapid discovery that we do, where the pain points are, and then identify what kind of skill sets we need. Sometimes we go into a co-development model, wherein there could be folks from like the UX team from the client side, and then we partner with them with the right set of people, right skill sets, right, to drive those Scrum meetings, as well as the build out of those stories, right? So that's kind of how we have to craft the team, and then getting the right casting, working with the clients is critical.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Raghu. And then I think that was our last question. So that concludes our webinar. I would like to thank everyone for taking their time from the busy schedule and joining us and asking all the questions. We appreciate it. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.